Critical thinking. To the extent that you understand it to be a good thing, you probably think you do it better than most people. I know I sure do. What is critical thinking? Let's start with some definitions. Not surprisingly, there are a variety of them. The application of logical principles, rigorous standards of evidence, and careful reasoning to the analysis and discussion of claims, beliefs, and issues. Disciplined thinking that is clear, rational, open-minded, and informed by evidence. The intellectually disciplined process of actively and skillfully conceptualizing, applying, analyzing, synthesizing, and/or evaluating information gathered from or generated by observation, experience, reflection, reasoning, or communication as a guide to belief and action. What's the most significant point of agreement that all of these definitions touch on? I'd say they all point in the direction of objectivity and consistency, and in overcoming our natural tendency toward personal and group bias. To be good at critical thinking, you need to apply the same standards and methodologies to all arguments, regardless of whether you like their conclusions or the people making them. If you hold your enemy's arguments to a higher standard than you do those of your allies, or if you let an argument's shortcomings slide because you agree with its conclusion, then you suck at critical thinking. Here are the top 5 reasons why you probably suck at critical thinking. Number 5, you haven't been trained in it. Most people never take a class in logic, but even for those who do, an Intro to Logic course that you took in college is about as likely to make you a thoroughgoing critical thinker as one semester of Spanish is to make you a fluent speaker of Spanish. Typically, to learn to speak fluent Spanish, you need to immerse yourself in a Spanish language environment, or spend a lot of time speaking with and taking correction from someone who is fluent in Spanish. The same is true of critical thinking. Our brains are evolved to keep us alive, to compete for status within a social group, to find mates, and ultimately to make little versions of ourselves and keep them alive until they reach sexual maturity, so that they can carry our genes into the future. That is what evolution has designed our brains to do. Our brains are not evolved to separate our feelings about a person from our opinions about the claims or arguments that they make. Nor are our brains evolved to spot equivocation or to dissect complex symbolic structures to ensure that the truth of an argument's premises guarantees the truth of its conclusion. Those are learned skills. Just like art, music, and math, learning these skills will be easier for some people than for others, but everybody can get better with study and practice. Number 4, the Dunning-Kruger effect. You might suck at critical thinking because you think you're good at it. Supposedly, it takes 10,000 hours of practice to master a skill, but with little effort and in a short period, you can learn enough about critical thinking to convince yourself and other equally clueless people that you're really good at it. Think of young children jumping around and kicking the air in a free-form martial arts demonstration after they've just watched an episode of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. The internet is chock full of little logic bros who feel like Neo in the Matrix after he got the martial arts download, opened his eyes and said, "I know Kung Fu." Maybe they memorized a list of a dozen logical fallacies, some of which even have Latin names. They invoke the scholarly authority of post hoc ergo propter hoc, and they feel the power of critical thinking flowing through them. They have not taken instruction, or more importantly, correction from an actual master, so they are oblivious to their shortcomings. They can spot the signs of gross bias in the people they disagree with, but they have not learned to recognize and overcome their own habitual tendency to cut themselves copious quantities of slack. They suck at critical thinking. Number 3, you understand that critical thinking will not get you what you want. Look at the people who enjoy high status, the ones who are well compensated in their work, live in beautiful houses, have sex with beautiful people, and travel to exotic destinations. Did they achieve this enviable constellation of lifestyle wins with critical thinking? Probably not. If wealth, status, and fame are what you're after, you'd do better to commit yourself to cultivating personal charisma. Learn to praise people who can help you and mouth the platitudes of your tribe, and worldly success will more likely smile upon you than if you critique your friends with the same annoying consistency that you do your enemies. Number 2, social media. Someone is wrong on the internet, and you're going to expose them. Why? Because you love the truth so much that you can't stand the thought that anyone, anywhere, believes a falsehood? I doubt it. More likely, you want the other people online who think as you do to see how ferocious and how clever you are in demolishing the intellectual pretenses of your ideological enemies. 280 characters doesn't leave much room for actual critical analysis, but it's the perfect length for performative morality and misrepresenting your enemy's views. Tell critical thinking to suck it and bask in the warmth of the approval of strangers. And the number one reason you suck at critical thinking: smartphones. Back in my day, to get online, you sat at a computer and dialed in to your local internet service provider. Maybe you read and responded to messages while you were still logged on, or maybe you downloaded them, logged off, and composed replies at your leisure. But either way, most of the time, you were not connected to the internet. You did not carry your computer in your pocket. It did not sit on the table by your plate at dinner, nor did you stare at it while sitting on the toilet. It did not beep, chirp, or vibrate to grab your attention throughout the day. It sat in one spot in your home or office unattended for most of the day until you once again sat down and went through the ritual of getting online. By design, you are no longer allowed that sort of distance from the cacophony of constant online distraction. There is more content competing for your limited attention than you can possibly consume. Every platform wants to maximize the time you spend engaged with it. And the algorithms have learned that a mental state conducive to unbiased objective analysis is not what will maximize time on platform. The algorithms encourage you to take everything personally. Every disagreement with your sacred ideological commitments is an attack on your person and your tribe, and you must respond quickly and reflexively lest the bastards win. Bad takes must be met with prompt righteousness. Thank jobs, your internet connection device is never out of reach. So, if this critical thinking business is so difficult and time-consuming, and isn't likely to help me score points with my friends or devastate my enemies, why should I even bother with it? That is an excellent question. And if you can honestly ask it without feeling so much as a niggling murmur from some locked storage closet in the dusty recesses of your mind with the words intellectual honesty written on the door, then I suggest you not trouble yourself with critical thinking. Not only will it not make you rich or get you laid, it's likely to turn your perpetual engagement with your personal connection device into a source of inescapable consternation. Like Rocco's basilisk, if it doesn't already have its claws in you, steer well clear of it. It will only make things worse. Happy trails.